Hello, and welcome back to the Dad and Sons podcast. I'm your host, co-host, random dude in the back, Mad Visual. And we have our lovely boys today, Liam and George.
Hello. I'm lovely.
Hi, other guy at the back here.
It's dad or son.
You decide.
You decide indeed. How it feels like a long time since we last spoke. I know it isn't. It's literally only a week and a day, but
It feels like forever.
both me and Matt have been on planes since then.
Yeah.
That sounds gross and weird.
Dude.
And I mean, on one hand, I'm like sad that I missed you. On the other hand, not really because of the pandemic.
I didn't even bother ask George. I didn't even bother.
I noticed. I did notice after you came home from Atlanta and said I just got home from Atlanta, and I was like, okay.
Because I knew what the answer was going to be, George. We both knew. I know you, George, by now. So it's just like, I could visit George for like an hour, right? Before I go do whatever I have to do. But I feel like George is going to be like,
It's so sad.
you know. And I'm like, let me just save George that answer. Let me just save George. Because I know you're going to hate doing it. So
I did wonder if I was gonna see like a YouTube rekindling.
I was there for 12 hours. Yeah, I was there for 12 hours. I got there at 5:30 and left at about 8 o'clock.
Wow. How long's the flight?
So you were there for a day.
Yes. The flights. So let me tell you. So the reason why I wanted to do just one day, so I flew during the nights. Right. I didn't have to do Airbnb, nothing like that. I just jumped there. Got what I needed to do done. Got my registration for my car, so I can switch it for California finally. Get my teeth finally done. Get these attachments off, so I can just finish it up after 3 years of these fucking Invisaligns. Finally done. No more trays. And I was looking on the internet, and it's usually around $400, $500 for a round trip. Spirit had $100 for a round trip. $50
Nice.
per fucking flight. How are they even making money off of that?
Oh, that's wild.
And if you know Spirit, because it's so cheap, you pay for everything. Carry-ons, everything. Right? You can't get away. You eat, like food, water, they ready with their little iPad. They're like, "Oh, okay, you want water? Okay, that'll be like $3.50." Like it's just they're ready. They're ready.
I am acquainted with this company.
Yes. So, they ask you to pick a seat, and I'm just like, why are they asking me to pick a seat? Like, obviously, no one's gonna be sitting next to each other, right? 6 feet, right? In the airport, they're saying that it's 6 feet. You have to stay 6 feet, wear your mask at all time, or you will be escorted out, all that shit. And you get inside the plane. If there's too many people, you sit in the middle of people.
That sounds...
Mine was the absolute opposite. Mine was a full plane. Seat to seat to seat to seat to seat to seat to seat. Everybody sat next to each other, all wearing masks, but
it doesn't, like, you're so close.
Everybody sat next to each other. Like mine was like, what? Right next to me, like a couple of inches. Some random ass dude.
My first plane,
horrifying.
My first plane was packed.
Yeah.
Everyone was like, really worried. They're like, I can't get off the plane. I'm not going to miss my plane, but I'm sitting next to someone. All the middle seats were just taken. I was like, there's no other seat left. I assumed that you did not sit next to someone. I just assumed that. I thought that that's what you do. No, that's not the case. Too. It's not the case.
So you don't have like two empty seats on either side?
Not even one. You see,
that got my hopes up.
Yep. So I had a middle seat.
Mine was exactly the same.
I had a middle seat, and I asked, and there was nothing left. but I did get a chance to get I sat next to someone, but it was like emergency seat, so nobody was in front of me. So it was like a couple on the other two seats, and I was at the aisle seat. So we were both just kind of scooting away from each other. I was like, I'm sorry. I'm just gonna sit here, and I'll try not to touch you. Hopefully, we both don't have COVID. Just sit here, whatever. And yeah, it worked out. And the next flight, there was barely anybody on that plane. Thank God. So I had a whole aisle to myself. So I stretched out and tried to sleep. I can never sleep on planes. I don't know how people do it. I can't sleep. I watched the Mandalorian and the Lion King on it.
How long was your flight?
4 hours. Non-stop.
4 hours.
Non-stop for $100?
For 12
For a chance of
hour
COVID? I don't know, man. I'll
day.
take my chances with COVID, man. $100? Non-stop?
Mine was 2 up to Sapporo. So I went up to Sapporo for a 4-day weekend this weekend, which kind of took the edge off a little bit. It was a little edgy because we booked it like a month and a half ago when this new campaign in Japan called the Go To campaign had started, where they're trying to encourage people to go to different places in Japan, giving you money off like Airbnbs, giving you money off like restaurants in the area.
Wow. How does that work?
Basically trying to encourage a boom in the economy. Of course, trying to get people moving around the country right now when there's COVID is not the best of idea if you're getting people from Tokyo going to the countryside and doing all that kind of garbage. But Sapporo is one of the highest hit plaans for Corona, and the cases are just rising and rising and rising. And we're like, fuck, we're going away for the weekend. This is going to suck. Lo and behold, the governor of Sapporo was like, oh, that's it. All bars close at 10 p.m. So we were like, oh, great. Now we have to find other things to do. But to be fair, I had an absolutely great time. Sapporo is like an A-star city. Like, guys, we are going to Sapporo when you guys come here, when the vaccines are freely available, and we all know everything's fine, because Sapporo is easily one of, if not my favorite place in Japan right now. It is such a great city. It's fantastic. I had a great time, and we didn't do the things we were supposed to be doing. I mean, we still drank a lot of beer and stuff, but it was mostly accompanied by walking around the city at night and feeling the cold. But the airplane ride was only 2 hours from Osaka. And even then, like, the whole plane was packed, full of people. Everybody wearing masks, of course. There was one douchebag who had to be told twice by the flight attendants to, like, keep putting his mask back on. He's like this
some
Japanese
old
teenager.
white dude on the plane.
No, thankfully. I was the only, me and my friend were the only foreigners on the entire plane. But that's understandable because there's no foreigners in Japan right now.
And in the back of your head where you're like, thank God you're not a white guy. Thank God you're not a white guy.
Yeah.
I was just like, put your mask on, you dick. Fuck. I was being the opposite. Just put your goddamn mask on, dude. Just because you're like young and youthful doesn't mean I am.
Yeah, the dudes were just scoffing every time the lady would come by. Like, can you please put your mask on? Like, you're not even talking on the phone. Like, put your fucking mask on. Like, what are you doing?
It was frustrating. And he was on the row across from me, so he was like 4 seats down, which was also. But for that whole 2 hours, like, I usually really like plane rides and I can settle in, but due to the compact nature, and it's one of those commercial planes where it's 3 seats, then the middle, and then 3 seats, right? It's like a bus. So it's just a packed plane, and for the whole 2 hours, I'm just like, I want to get off. I want to get off as soon as possible. I just want to just get off now, and then less chance of corona.
Do you feel it? Do you feel that, like, that impending doom? Like, you start to feel a little woozy a little bit. You're like, I'm like, you get inside your head. You know, being around so many people, like, I don't want to get sick. I don't want to get sick. Like even
you're
regular
stuck in a
sick.
scratch in your throat. You eat something just to see if you can still taste it.
Yeah. Like, not even COVID, just like any type of sick. I don't want to be any type. I don't want the sniffles. I don't want anything. Like, I don't even want a little cough.
It feels like you're doing something wrong as well. Like you shouldn't be there. You shouldn't be doing it. And it's like, why am I risking it? And which is not great.
Why have social interactions? Why go outside and get some vitamin D? Like, why? Why? Stay inside and become depressed, because that's how humans work. You know,
no.
I know.
Come on,
I
guys.
know.
Let's not go down there. Like vaccines, 90% success rate, 94% success rate. We'll be fine, and we'll be golden soon. I hope. Fingers crossed. God damn it. Rip.
Don't take away our rights, right, George? Don't take away our rights. I'm about to go to the streets with signs. Fuck your feelings. Trump 2020.
I can't absolutely stand the fact that Liam was like, that's okay, we don't have to dwell on this. The loneliness and the misery of being online all the fucking time is gradually taking over my life and was going to be the topic of one of the small talks I wanted to do this week.
Yeah, please do.
Which,
I feel it, man.
a documentary. I wanted to talk about an excellent documentary I watched called Feels Good Man. Feels
I know
good,
where this is going.
comma man. All right.
Uh-huh.
This is a documentary about Pepe the Frog, and specifically about the life of Pepe the Frog's creator, who is a cartoonist.
Oh, feels good, man.
He's a cartoonist named Matt Fury, who originally drew Pepe in his young adulthood, post-college days about a wacky comedic hijinks of other animal characters living in a house together, being silly slacker roommates. The documentary goes into why, of all those characters, it was Pepe that appealed to always online dwellers of the internet. How it was kind of the quote unquote little sister of the group, the background character who occasionally gives a funny quip that became the one everyone latched onto, and how kind of addressing characters in the sense of them appealing to the internet because they're a background character, lovable loser type, isn't even necessarily accounting for the sheer randomness of what becomes a meme on the internet. This documentary had a very knowingly difficult time explaining the minutiae and the lore behind how the internet has changed over the past 3 years and what specifically happened to Pepe, that it doesn't go into a step-by-step history of Pepe becoming an alt-right edgelord icon, so much as it conveys the emotional experience of what it's like making Pepe and seeing it turn into that. And in that regards, it was fantastically done. A lot of the artistry of documentary filmmaking is how it conveys that emotional experience. There will be these fancy montages of ridiculous looking trippy animations of Pepe melting into a swastika and then melting into a like Jewish caricature from propaganda art, while slow gurgling bass plays in the background. And then it'll cut to Matt Fury himself, who is characterized in the documentary as the sweetest, nicest guy, who's also kind of behind the times technologically and doesn't want anything to do with what his character has become. It'll cut from horrible, awful 4chan based Pepe memes with the scary music playing in the background to this guy who's so incredibly sweet and soft-spoken and aloof, and he kind of looks like Pepe himself in a weird way where the face and the eyes kind of weirdly match up. And Pepe's face and eyes is a recurring theme you see in all this guy's art, and one of which is a children's book that is just the most beautiful, cute, wholesome thing. He wanted to sell it, and he wanted to be known as a guy who made successful Where the Wild Things Are style surrealistic children's art. He didn't want to be known as the guy who made Pepe, the slacker comics from his younger days, but instead he became known as the guy who created the alt-right neo-Nazi adjacent internet meme Pepe, rather than whatever it had to do with his comics. And it's absolutely crushing watching this guy go on a daddy-daughter bike ride with his adorable little girl side by side next to another children's book author using Pepe as a character in a book trying to teach children Islamophobia. It's the most uncomfortable but also humanizing piece of works I've seen in a long ass time, and that's perfect subject material that they're trying to cover here in terms of writing that line between awkward, cringy awfulness and there being the wake up call that that comes with the realization that, oh my God, these are real people who have other career goals and families and lives just as intimate and complicated as our own.
Move.
It is interesting to see, especially for one, why on earth Pepe became what it became. Like, it's a frog. It's a depressed frog.
The movie doesn't give you concrete answers why. Like it goes more into the how than the why. The movie itself just says it's random.
It's all sort of related to like Kekistan and Kek and all that kind of garbage as well, isn't it? It's interesting to see how something you made in 2005 could be 15 years later such a symbol of. Can you imagine just drawing a cartoon on a post-it note one day and being like, huh, that was funny, and then 15 years later it cuts to like a future premonition of your cartoon post-it note being a symbol for literally the fall of democracy itself.
And then it also has scenes of the protests in Hong Kong where Pepe was used for like pro-democracy.
Where they had no idea what it stood for in America.
And they still embraced it and would like march in the streets against the police with Pepe symbology versus how it works in the USA. And it's so wild and weird, and it's aware of how wild and weird it is, but it doesn't relish in it. It's responsibly done. It was to an extent, to the extent that it shines a spotlight on some of the worser actors in this story. And that's a problem that I think documentaries tackling these sorts of subject matters of internet meme culture are going to have to question themselves, is how do you make a story like this without giving some of the worst actors the spotlight? There's a lot of footage in this documentary from Alex Jones, a lot of interviews with people who will either stay anonymous or use a screen name and refer to their like area of expertise underneath their name as something just like 4chaner or meme coin trainer. Yeah, there'll be an interview with someone who is supposed to explain how internet jokes became a lifestyle, and they won't say who the guy's name is necessarily. It'll just be a stereotypically nerdy looking white guy who will just look at the camera, explain why 4chan is capable of setting up this cycle of self-hurting dopamine loops of reaffirming your existence through pain. And that it's like
so cringy.
That's his expertise. Like that, it'll cut from a psychologist who's like some old doctor who's writing a book on the subject to someone who doesn't want his real name attached to that stuff at all.
Do we have this yet? Do we have like professors of internet history? Like,
I think
we have
will
that
soon.
We must soon, right? Like within the next 10 years.
What seems to be happening from this documentary, at least, is that currently graduated existed psychologists are now learning what's happening on the internet. But I think it will absolutely be necessary, especially what a quagmire the history of following this stuff is for future generations, to have a more coherent, codified, readable, agreed upon historical narrative of what happens to culture on the internet. Because that's what Pepe ultimately is an extremely confusing, a labyrinthian narrative of two sides who live in insanely different online bubbles from one another. But for people in the future to know what happened over the past 3 years, like, you got to understand it somehow.
Well, there is like different arcs of the internet, isn't there? And like, definitely one day there will be historians that are, oh, well, I focused on the pre-Flash era internet, or I focused entirely on the 4chan era of the internet. And you're gonna have different historians who are gonna claim different things about different parts of the internet and what led to what.
And since 2016, though, I think that's absolutely like not a laughing matter anymore. It's serious. It's something that needs to be done, and I'm sure millions of dollars have certainly already been spent by agencies like the Russian adjacent Internet Research Agency, who are well aware of how much money and time and bot accounts you got to pump into what certain forums of the internet to change actual real life history. Like it's gonna be a big thing because it already is. The movie cannot ignore, and I'm so glad more of a spotlight is being shown on this, that 4chan did have a part in the 2016 election. That this is historical. The stuff going on there does actually have historical significance, unfortunately, and as terrifying as that is, and someone's gotta write the report on it, right? Oh.
It's funny, like I just never, always avoided that website, but I always hear really, really horrible things. Really
Yeah,
horrible.
I
things.
seriously wonder just like what a 3-year morbid fascination when I was a late teenager, young adult. I seriously wonder how much that fucked me up, and as the
Because
years went on.
there was a time when it was cool, right? It was like, I mean, for our age of people growing up,
Yeah, we were dumb kids.
there was a time where it's like, hey, have you been on 4chan? And it's weird because the one thing I could never get on with 4chan just because it was so unusable. Like I just didn't understand how to keep up with it or even like how to use it correctly with all of the different boards. You know, obviously people would just go to general boards and stuff like that. But in terms of like general use and keeping up with things and the anonymous nature of it, it was not exactly user friendly to use. And I think that put me off, and I just went to other places instead anyway. And I never truly understood why people enjoyed it so much, apart from, of course, the anonymity of it. But from my personal standpoint, I never really used it for that reason alone. And then obviously, as time developed, everybody realized the kind of shit that was happening on there, let alone all of this, but you know, child pornography and all other garbage and other terrible stuff that was happening through there.
What the fuck?
Well, because you could post like anonymously, people would just post the most diabolical of stuff, and it used to get deleted fairly fast, but you know, people could just post what they wanted, and that was the kind of stuff that would happen. People would take advantage of that.
Yeah.
And do it.
Yeah. Like one of the biggest jokes was always, oh, it was never good anyway. Oh, it was never supposed to be good. And the documentary absolutely positively acknowledges the cloak of irony that gives it. That if you make the position of your argument something that sounds like something that can't be taken seriously, then anyone arguing against it may not be taken seriously. Even though maybe it should. Like the appeal of 4chan itself is a pity party. Like it's a cycle of feeling depressed and miserable and then wanting to repeat that because you at least get some sort of hit of meaningless existence or meaningfulness to your existence out of it than you would otherwise. And that specifically appeals to what is both a very dangerous and common archetype I think a lot of people go through, which is the awkward some awkward developmental years when you're either a teenager or a young adult and you don't know how to spend your time and what sort of person you're becoming. That shit has an appeal to it that is hard to resist sometimes.
If you're young and you're on 4chan, you need to go outside and hang out with some real people. But I guess you can't do that anymore, so
yeah, and I do think as the years roll on and as more and more consequences of this become acknowledged, it's gonna be taken more seriously by more serious professionals.
And it's the same with everything. It's like we can't have nice things if people treat it with not disrespect, but they take advantage of it. And this is why governments will clamp down on stuff to do with the internet. We've already seen it in the past couple of years with different policies that internet providers have tried to, push through. I forget the name. SOPA was the first big main one, right? Like, and more of that kind of stuff's gonna happen because people do stuff like they do on 4chan, or we get uprisings through the internet of white power and stuff like that. I don't know. It's tough, and we are living through it right now.
Yeah.
So it does feel strange.
We are living through this history, and there is no easy answer in terms of how to fix a problem like Pepe. Like, what happens when what is like a licensed copyrighted character someone made ends up becoming more better known. Like, this is almost one of the worst case scenarios that like copyright law is supposed to be invented for in the first place, right? Is so something you create doesn't end up going into the hands of actual neo-Nazis. And a children's book featuring a copyright distinct frog still named Pepe that was like teaching children about the dangers of other people coming in and living in their land is like that almost sounds like the picture perfect bad case scenario for why copyright laws would exist in the first place.
So
And
someone wouldn't be able to like get the Berenstain Bears doing some horrible things to each other over and over again and spread it around on Twitter.
yeah, the line typically is once you start selling something for money, you're not allowed to use the character, and that's how Matt Fury was able to get away with DMCAing and deplatforming a lot of people using Pepe for these purposes. But ultimately, he can't. Like
can't
once the
stop
internet
him.
latches onto something like that, it's out of anyone's control. It's out of his control. It's out of the economy's control almost, because a lot of the misery and the pity party that 4chan perpetuates itself with isn't like they're not selling memes for money in its inception, but that still happened. The movie gets into meme coin crypto traders that would sell rare Pepes for tens of thousands of dollars at an auction house, and it's still the most confusing and bewildering thing, and it's unable to explain how the economy of that works. But the fact that Pepe arose while the internet was being commercialized by influencers with their advertisements and their sponsorships also is no coincidence. Pepe represents a kind of like homemade, low-tech, not-for-profit version of internet commodifying, and that gives an appeal to the demographic of lonely young people who don't know what they're supposed to be spending all their adult time doing.
So, video games?
One thing I do want to ask
guess.
before we move on, I've had to live through 4chan. I've also had to live through George clicking his mouse about 1,000 plus times in the past 29 minutes.
Oh, let me turn on my wireless mouse then with the soft clicky. There we go. I'm sure
I don't know
Too
whether
late.
it was like a
we'll
reflect,
make it
like
through this together.
was it? I just have to ask, was it connected to your PC? Because you were so enveloped in talking that I'm wondering how many tabs you might have opened on your Google Chrome now that your RAM is gonna eat itself alive.
I think it's a nervous tick, like maybe an internet
Possibly.
conference version of like waving your arms around in a conversation or like nodding your head yes. Like it just
That's
kind of
true.
keeps other parts of my body active. Got to circulate the bloods. Got to have the George juices flowing through my veins. You know, it keeps my mouse arm nice and responsive.
If your hand causes you to sin, cut it off.
That can't argue with that.
Just take a knife. If all you got is a butter knife, go ahead and just chop. Just go chopping.
Give it a good squeeze.
Take it
Ugh.
off.
Take it away.
The benefit would be you never have to play video games again either.
Yeah.
Just it's 100% a win all around.
Yeah.
Unless you play video games one-handed, and then
Well-
What about the Xbox accessibility controller?
that's true. What you guys been doing? I played a lot of games, even though I was away for 4 days. Of course, I've been banging that Series X drum. But how about you two?
I just wrapped up my big project, so I have been playing a little something during the night when I had some time, and it
Ooh.
has been one particular game. Believe it or not, it's gonna be Tales of Vesperia.
You've been playing it on Game Pass.
I've been playing on Game Pass. Fucking
Of
Game
course
Pass,
you
man.
have. Of course you have.
Yeah, I think I played a little bit of this years ago. So I got back into it. I was like, I was gonna play Dragon Quest, but I noticed that on December 2nd, I think is when.
Yeah, it's
The-
not
the-
until next month.
Yeah, I was just like, oh, I'm not gonna start it. I'm gonna get to the end of that demo real quick. So I was just like, oh, let me try Tales. Tales again. I probably won't like it, but I'll try it out. It's on Game Pass, basically free. Right, Liam? Basically free.
Basically free.
Basically free.
Oh my god.
Download
Basically
it.
free.
It's still money that you exchange for a good or service.
$15 is basically free for all these games.
Basically free.
Free is basically free. And they update it pretty frequently. So I downloaded it, and it's actually pretty entertaining to play. Like, it's all like basically all voice acted, which is quite surprising. And they have like I think what brings it all together with all that, other than like pretty decent voice acting, is the in between cutscenes or little comics that they do. You get the chance to optionally press select, and they pop up with their faces, and they're a little bit animated, and they have like little quips with each other, kind of like a lower res version of what Uncharted does, and only optional, where you're like in between things and they're like talking to each other. It's actually pretty good in like developing these characters to make them a lot more set into the world than just like, you know, watching a cutscene during like high moments. I would say combat's good. Really cool combos you can do. They do
the combat's
a lot.
very nice.
Yeah, like this is an old ass game, and this shit holds up pretty well.
Yeah, it's so weird to hear that Xbox 360 era stuff is now old.
Yeah,
and that it like looks and feels old. I really don't feel like.
So let me just clarify: is the Tales of Vesperia on Game Pass the remastered one that came out last year?
Definitive version, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
it
the
is.
nice, pretty looking one.
Mhm.
I remember playing it last year, but I didn't get far because the start of that game is really slow.
Yeah, it's not Final Fantasy where it hits that like boom.
So have you finished it, or are you just still playing?
No.
I was gonna say
I got into it though. I'm in.
I know so many people who like this game,
Mhm.
but they also have not finished it.
And I think I know why. So when you get deeper, like it's pretty good. Like first 10 hours, you're like, this is not bad. The writing is not bad. Then you hit a couple moments where some Deus Ex garbage happens.
Deus Ex, like the video game or the literary
The
technique.
literary term, like
The
it's
Deus
just
Ex
like,
Machina.
yeah, and you're just like, come on, the same thing can't happen twice, guys. Come on, what are you doing? What are you doing? Come on, don't ruin this for me. Like, I'm enjoying your game. Don't fuck it up. Like, I hate when that shit happens. You know, like, you invest time and you're hoping that the story is consistently decent, right? Like, it's a video game story, right? We all know what we're going to get from this, right? We all know.
Is that our new derogatory term?
Yeah, it's a video game story.
It's a video game story.
Like,
if we ever want
like-
to denigrate somebody's writing chops.
Like, I understand why people don't like things like Last of Us and stuff like that, right? But it's still a good story to enjoy, right? Like, it doesn't just have, like, crazy shit that happens that, like, God doesn't come from the heavens and save Ellie randomly in the middle of the story. Like, that shit doesn't happen.
Anime games, like JRPG anime games.
They do that.
Get away with that kind of stuff, which is awesome.
Yes, it's awesome sometimes. Awesome. Yeah, but if it doesn't break the story, and I feel like there's two things in the first, I don't know how long I'm in, but like I would say after the 10-hour mark, somewhere around there, those moments, and one of the main characters not making up their mind, and the story going along with them not making up their mind, it gets annoying. Those two things are the only thing that might make me quit. Because if it continues to happen, I think like it's not even worth finishing at that point. Like I'm curious to know what happens with this, with, you know, when they meet a certain person and blah blah blah. But like for me, like I know some people play for gameplay, but there's only so long you can play JRPG gameplay before you quit. For me, it has to be the story that pulls me in. It's always been like that. Like the story has to be at least decent for me to be like, oh yeah, I want to see what happens next. And I'm okay like with the gameplay being, good enough to get me through that. Because the puzzles are pretty decent. The dungeons change. They keep introducing more and more stuff. Like nothing is reused. It's pretty dope, I gotta say.
It's a very beautiful looking game. I really like the environments that you go to. I do like the characters a lot. I mean, it generally is known as the best Tales game. Like Tales of the Abyss is maybe the other one that is the most popular.
There's another one, Vesperia, or it starts with a B. Berseria.
There's Tales of Zestiria, Tales of Berseria, Tales of Crestoria.
Jesus.
Oh, Tales of Asteria. Is that the one I played? I played one of these. I don't remember which one.
You play Tales of Asteria every day.
I don't think that's on Steam.
It was years upon years ago.
Yeah.
So I think the 18 plus version.
The ones that tend to be the most popular are like Tales of Symphonia, Tales of the Abyss.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
Tales of Vesperia.
Eternia.
Tales of Xillia. That's the one I played.
I watched a housemate once play through all of Tales of Xillia, and that's like 30 hours I'll never get back watching him play that.
You had a choice.
For whatever it was worth. I do remember the one day I did play that game being pretty all right. It had an okay intro. It just felt a little cliche to me.
Isn't this also one of the first games that old Troy Baker was in? He's Yuri, isn't he?
That's why he sounds so familiar. A lot of characters sound very familiar. Very familiar.
It's a pretty top-notch cast, I think.
It's pretty top for sure. Like, because the voice acting is on point. The story is the only thing that's not. But that's to be expected with JRPGs.
Let's go. What's his name?
Sadly.
It's Flynn, the guy from Critical Role. Not Matt Mercer, the other one. Sam Riegel, I think. He's Flynn.
Oh yes. It's weird how he can change his voice to be just a little bit different.
I think this is one of the games where a lot of the Critical Role guys and girls might be. I think definitely the guys are in it.
Those guys are great. Travis Willingham.
There you go. Yeah. So actually, I'm looking through. Yeah, Travis Willingham is in there. Liam O'Brien is in there, and also Laura Bailey. They're pretty much all in there, apart from Matt Mercer. I think he's probably in there somewhere. It seems like a lot of the cast.
It's amazing how young they started, right? Like, Mushishi. Mushishi. There it is. Mushishi.
Mushy sushi.
Mushi sushi.
Mushy sushi.
That was like, what, 15 years ago, and Travis was in that? Like, come on. Like, what the fuck? Like, how old are you? Why do you look so good for being so old?
He's pretty old.
He's pretty old, man. He's pretty fucking old.
At what point does the game start to feel old?
So it's so funny you bring this up.
Yeah.
If you kind of will please me to transition into what I've been doing, Matt. So obviously, leading on from what you were talking about with Game Pass being fantastic and all that kind of stuff, I've obviously been binging on a lot of Game Pass stuff, just hopping in and out. Quick Resume is working a little bit better than it was last week. Seems there was an update and a lot more games are working nicely. It's still a bit finicky, but there's a lot of games that I've been bouncing around because I realized I can have Spotify. Now, this is probably something you could do on the Xbox One, but it just works so seamlessly on Series X, and it's really fast. I can I have the Spotify app on, and I can listen to podcasts whilst playing games that I don't really require the audio for, and it just all comes to my TV. It's on it. Well, I mean, I've talked about this in the past that I like to do this, play mindless games that don't need audio, but I've been going through some Game Pass games that are not story based, stuff like Forza Horizon, the latest one that is really good looking and really fun to play. I'm really surprised by that game, but I don't need the audio. I turn all the music and everything off. I just have the sound effects of the car, but I can listen to the podcast and stuff.
Oh, okay.
That game has been like something I just turn on every day. Just play a couple of races and drive around the UK. It's awesome. It's a really good game, and it looks fucking amazing in 4K.
Almost at tears right now.
Oh, it's that. I'm hella surprised by how much I'm enjoying that game and how good it looks. But on top of that, a little old gem appeared. EA Play is now a part of Game Pass. Some of those EA games appearing.
Really?
One of those games, Skate 3, my
Holy
bros.
shit.
Skate motherfucking 3
How is it going
on
back?
Game Pass. It is so good. And
Is
it's
it only
funny.
Xbox? It's only Xbox. Damn.
I don't know. Oh, so it's not on
Yeah,
PC. Okay.
it's not on PC.
So yeah, it's only Xbox then. I have spent so much time this week outside of the only other game I've been playing outside of these two, playing Skate 3. And I forget there was Skate 1 and 2, and now we're at 3, and I'm playing 3, and it feels pretty old. Like, it feels like that era of game. Like, there's like a mini map, and it has like objectives, and like everybody's like a pretty sort of uncanny valley detailed character. Like, it's got the guy from My Name is Earl in there as your coach, and everything, and it feels a little old now. And even though it's a 360 game, it does feel old. And like when you're typing in your name, it comes up with the old Xbox 360 like keyboard, and it's a little lower resolution. And I'm like, damn, even 360 games now feel a little old. But that doesn't detract away from the fact that Skate 3 feels fucking amazing. This game, still amazing. Still amazing. Coming off the back of playing Tony Hawk and stuff recently,
Yeah.
still amazing.
I think Skate 3 is when they removed that infinity trick thing that you can do in 2, right?
I mean, possibly. I have no idea
Where you can
about
just
that.
keep going kick flips and grinding over and over and over and over and over again.
So one of the things they have, I think, is like a combo denigration type thing that you would have in fighting games, where over time you just end up doing less points, so it doesn't even count. So you stop doing it. But the game feels so good. Like, I'm preaching to the choir, I imagine, because everybody knows. But I haven't played Skate 3 since it launched, and just being able to boot it up for 10 minutes, because it uses quick resume as well, and play like 10 minutes while listening to a podcast before jumping into something like Yakuza, which is the other game I've been playing, is so good. And it feels great. And I'm just free skating around, like doing 360 flips on rails and having a great time. And it loads super fast because it's on the Series X, so I can fast travel around to different areas in the map and set the marker so I can keep going back. And everything works really nice. And the physics in that game is like way ahead of its time. Like, I'm thinking, like, not being funny, but those indie skate games, what is it, Skater XL, and the other one that just got released that
and anyone know about Session?
Yeah, so those that were on Steam, like those games, I'm not being funny, but they are like 10 steps back and 2 steps forward in terms of how they compare to, Skate and what Skate was doing at that time. Man, it's a good game. Skate 3, a hella good game. If you got Game Pass on Xbox, you do yourself a favor if you've never played it. It's so good. The fighting style combo input is just still so good. It feels very natural. So that's been a hell of a good time. And Game Pass, downloading No Man's Sky, downloaded Descenders, downloaded Nier Automata, just downloaded a whole host of games that I haven't even touched yet. But the fact that I just can, nobody can stop me because it's free.
How is it free if you pay a monthly fee?
Man, that's so easy to get you with that.
I really, really want to know about Yakuza.
So the other game I've been playing nonstop, I played a little bit of Assassin's Creed Valhalla now. Kind of not very impressed with that. So far.
I mean, it's Ass Creed. Like, what do you expect? It's the same
I think
shit.
it has an even weaker beginning. A lot of people are really liking it, but there's a lot of bugs, and it's a bit all over the place. The beginning of it is not great, and the combat it introduces you to is the bare bones, just swinging an axe, and it does not feel good after playing something like Ghost of Tsushima, which is very, very similar.
There was real hype behind this one. They assembled like a dream team of some of the best.
And I think it's paid off because a lot of people are saying that once you get into it, like once you get into the UK, and once you start getting some of the combat stuff that is obviously part of the skill points that carry on, it does start to become a very good game. But I think it's a wall in the beginning. There's a lot of bugs, and it's a bit all over the place, and doesn't feel as good as something like Ghost of Tsushima, which is the easiest thing I can compare it to.
Did you finish that?
I played a lot of it. I
Oh my
I kind of want to
God.
go back to on PS5,
I'm doing my first games.
but I can't be bothered until I can play it on PS5 when it's 60 frames and doesn't drop to like 10 frames every
I'm
time
waiting.
I swing the
I'm
camera.
waiting. I'm still waiting for Bloodborne port. Still waiting for that.
Oh yeah. But yeah, so I mean, this week has been entirely dominated by playing Yakuza Like a Dragon, or Yakuza 7, as it's also known. Guys, this game's really good. It's really good.
It looks pretty interesting.
It is possibly the most interesting, I think, so
Most
far.
interesting.
Which is weird because I do
compared to-
really like this series, but you know,
Uh-huh.
Kazuma Kiryu is a legend. He's untouchable, but he is very one note. Like, you know, he's like honor defined as a Yakuza. Like he's almost like a modern day samurai in a lot of parts. Like, what has always been interesting about the Yakuza series is that Kiryu is this stoic, kind of interesting guy who is surprised by how weird and funny the world can be sometimes, and like, that's the kind of funny nature of the series. Like, he's put into these awkward situations sometimes alongside a very serious, you know, plot that goes on about Yakuza and the sub stories around it. And that's always been what is so intriguing about it. In this game, instead, you have, you know, Ichiban Kasuga, who is like both of those things as a person. He's an honorable, stoic dude who wants to be a hero because he played Dragon Quest when he was a kid. That's literally why he wants to be a hero.
That's actually the story.
That's actually the story. And on top of that,
adorable.
he's a fucking moron. He's so dumb and stupid. And it's because he went to jail for 19 years and has no idea about because the game is set in 2019. He has no idea about the world. He gets a smartphone and he doesn't even know how to use it. They tell him what GPS is, and he just thinks it's the creepiest shit in the world. Like, you're able to track people via GPS, because he just has no idea about the world. And he's so dumb and lovable. I almost kind of like him more than Kiryu. And that is like blasphemous to say. But he's a lot more interesting because dumb shit happens because he invites it along. And it's really interesting to happen. And he gets himself into such stupid situations that you have to follow through that make the game way more interesting. And this is before you touch on like the sort of plot of the story, which it's kind of a bit all over the place because like it's very heavy in the beginning and very serious, and a lot of it's going on, and you're learning about all of these characters to set up this big event that happens, which is understandable. But then it dives right back into kind of like typical Yakuza stuff where it's really slow and you're building yourself up from the bottom by doing literally jobs. Like, you are literally a handyman who goes around looking for work, and the work you're going is like Japanese soap plans and prostitution and all of this kind of stuff, like the very seedy underbelly of Japanese world. But you're not the hot shit who runs it. You're the guy who's like just a bodyguard for these places at the moment. And that's really unique and interesting, and it's a lot of fun. And so far, like, I'm just having a great time. And then on top of that, you have the new combat, which is this RPG system instead of a brawler. And it's actually pretty good. I kind of like it. It still feels like you're beating. Yeah, so I mean, it's an RPG, right? So you're not button mashing, but it has a lot of interactive stuff, kind of like Paper Mario, where you have to time button presses to deal more damage, and some of them are like combo based, so you'd have to like mash X and then time Y perfectly to do like the maximum damage. So there's a lot of interactivity in the combat. Yeah, and it feels like you're still dealing damage, like if you were button mashing with Kiryu or something like that. It still feels like you're, you know, aggressively beating the shit into these guys on the street. The one thing so far, the game has been pretty easy, so there's no need for any tactical nuance. The game gives you a lot of skills with the characters that I have so far, which is Namba and what's his name? Adachi, and then Kasuga. So there's no need for me to really think about it tactically so far, which is kind of disappointing because I really want to use some of their spells or like that magic. I don't know how to call it, like, because I don't the skills. I think it's called skills in the game. Like their skills, because they are fucking hilarious. Like, just dumb shit that is so good.
Hard. Put it on hard.
I think you can, but also I was reading some of the reviews and stuff, and people are saying that later in the game you just hit a wall. Like it does what JRPGs do, and like that's one of the negative points about it. I haven't reached that yet. Like everything's been pretty much a breeze so far. Is that you hit a wall and it's not a very fun one. So like if you want to overcome it and finish the game, like maybe just keep bumping into every battle and become super overpowered. But that doesn't sound that great. But right now I'm still having a blast with it. Some of the skills are like fucking hilarious. Like you've got this guy who is he's an ex-nurse, like who was stricken off the record for selling drugs. And you know, he's a homeless guy now. He's great and wise, but he throws pigeon food at people and lets pigeons attack them as an attack. And when he heals people, it's called healing powder. But what he does, he runs up to people, he bends down towards their crutch and then like rubs their crutch and heals them with powers. He has his own healing. He has his own healing spell where he kind of just like takes a nap on some cardboard for a minute. Like some of the skills are really funny and unique to watch. There are other ones that like you get a baseball bat and it looks really brutal and you can smack people right in the face, and
you can hit people into moving traffic, right?
You can also do that. So one thing that is kind of annoying about it is that the game encourages you to do attacks when you're near environmental stuff. So then you'll like the character will naturally pick it up and then add it to their attack. So if you attack normally, if you don't have a bat, then you will do it with your fists. When you get the bat, which is a bit later on in the game, you'll start using a bat to attack, and that changes your job, like your job system, kind of like a traditional knight, mage, fighter type thing. In this, they're dumb. One's detective, one's homeless man, another is hero. It's really funny. But you can't actively move your characters. Like they move around automatically around the screen.
Oh.
So you might be quite close to a bike, but not close enough. And you can't move them any closer. Yeah, you can't move them. They automatically move by themselves. So it's a bit frustrating because the game is like encouraging you to try and use environmental items because it does extra damage and stuff like that. And it could be quite useful, but you can't actually position yourself to be anywhere near those. Like as far as I know so far, like the analog sticks don't work or anything. All movement is automatic, and everybody's sort of cycling.
So you just press attack, and then you can attack them, and then it moves to what it wants to move to
the enemies you've targeted. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But if you time it so you press attack when you're next to something in the environment, then they'll automatically pick that up and use it as a weapon on the enemy that you've targeted. So that can be a little frustrating, but it doesn't take away from the combat. It's fun. And it's like a traditional JRPG, but it's a lot faster and a lot cleaner. It's definitely a lot more involved. Like there's stuff where if you attack an enemy and you down the enemy, if you follow up immediately with the other character before that enemy can get up, you'll deal massive extra damage. So like you have to be wary sometimes of like enemies that have fallen over and they're trying to get back up, and how you can deal more extra damage depending on what was the attack or skill that came before. A lot of the like debuffs and stuff like that are like really dumb shit. Like people, one of the ones I came across today was like this enemy. He was like an otaku internet blogger, and he like recorded a video of me and was like, and the attack he did was, it was something called like, this enemy just posted a video of you online and you got negative comments, and then it debuffs you because you feel fear of the negative comments.
I kind of want to play this game.
It's really quirky. It's really unique, and it does that great thing that the Yakuza games can do, which is balance like a really serious plot, like a real serious Yakuza drama versus absolute like clown level inanity garbage that you just like you eat up. It's so silly at times, honestly.
Is it random battles? Like what? How are you leveling up?
Yeah, so it's same as Yakuza, like where you walk down the street and like enemies come up to you and challenge you, and then it initiates a battle, and then you're just in the street using a command system instead of like.
Oh, people just can run up to you like.
Yeah. They have like red arrows on the head, and you can see them on the map, so you can sort of run into them if you want.
Hey.
Sometimes, like if you don't take side streets and stuff, you'll end up running into like 5 in a row, and that can be a bit annoying.
Are you walking with your shirt not tucked in? Come on, let's throw down right now, son.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Are you wearing white on Labor Day?
The huge guy that walks the streets with money. Is he still in the game?
No, I haven't seen him yet. No, but I just got something called Pound Mates, which is like in the story they thought it was like some sort of sex thing, like Pound Mates or Delivery Service, as it's called in Japanese. And it turns out it's just like a black guy with massive like morning stars for fists that turns up to help you every now and again if you pay him money. And it's pretty funny to watch him beat the shit out of enemies.
Oh my God.
I know, right? It's weird.
Does it have English voice acting?
It does have English voice acting. It does.
Really?
Yeah, our old buddy Prosy D's in it at one point.
Whoa. Oh, hold on. Oh, you have it on? I thought you usually
No,
play
I don't. I'm playing with Japanese voices. But I've heard from some friends that the English one is really strong. Like, it's really good. It's got George Takei in it as well.
Wait, okay, hold on.
George Takei.
They have English voice. Have they always had English voice acting?
No, so they started with Judgment, which was the spin-off like 2 years ago or a year ago, the
Right.
crime detective one, and then they carried on with this one. Obviously, Yakuza now is big money, right? So they were already appealing to a Western audience by localizing it. I remember when
Shit.
after Yakuza 4 came out, we had to literally petition online for Yakuza 5 to get localized because the series wasn't that popular. And then we didn't even get a physical release. We only got a digital release, which, man, the days since Yakuza 0 came out and just popularized the series has really changed. But no, it's got full English voice acting. I'm playing with Japanese, and the Japanese voice acting is so good, as you imagine.
Yeah, of course.
Ichiban is just amazing, but Number and Adachi are just as great, and all of the people you meet so far are awesome. The game really delves into like the sort of seedy side of Japan as well, like prostitution and drugs and kind of all this other stuff, but morally
I have to
gives
play
these
this.
people like reasoning as to why they do it. Like, they've got nowhere else to go. They need to pay debts. Their family members are sick, and they're trying to, women who are supporting their children, and the only way they can do it is through like soap lands and all this kind of stuff. It's really interesting, and it's really good so far. I kind of was bored of the Yakuza series before, because even though the games are really good, the moment-to-moment gameplay has been
It's
kind of
pretty
unchanged.
boring. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's not that it's boring. It's just kind of not changed. And, we have like 6 games now.
Yeah, not to say anything, because I played a lot of Yakuza 0, a lot of it, but I didn't finish it because I felt like I wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, I played 3, 4, and 5, and by the time we got to 0, which did revolutionize the series a little bit, I was already burned out at that point. And then we had Kiwami and then Kiwami 2, which is both are on Game Pass and also 0. Yeah, at that point I was kind of burnt out. But with this one, obviously being a part of the Series X like launch titles, and having this battle system and having a different protagonist, I was interested in trying again. I'm actually having a way better time than I thought as well. Like, it's really fun. It's pure fun. It has a great story at the moment. Characters fantastic. It's not as slow as other Yakuza games so far. And obviously using the power of Series X. In 60 frames, running really nicely. There's barely any load times. Everything loads really quickly, text loads really quickly, fights load really quickly. All of those quality of life improvements that stop you from getting burned out, because that's the kind of stuff that dragged me down in the past, is gone away. And I think this game is really good. I think I've played like 20 hours of it already.
It's pretty strong for you, man.
That's pretty strong for me. And that's on top of also dipping into Skate 3 and Horizon and playing a lot of Tetris Connected.
And Xenoblade.
And adding Xenoblade into it, man.
Yeah. Almost there, almost to the end. And I can fell almost to the end of that too.
So it's fine. What I did with I Can Fell was I got up to where my PC save is. So I played like the 3 hours that I played prior, and I got up to my PC save. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to be a bit more like strong-willed, and I'm categorizing it. Like when I play Skate and Horizon, I know they're for short periods of time while I listen to a podcast, but when I want to sit down and properly play a game, I'm jumping into Yakuza to try and keep making progress and get towards the end. That's why I'm not.
You definitely beat Yakuza. It's
Yes,
more expensive
so-
than everything else that you're playing right now.
Well, actually, Valhalla was fucking.
Oh
A
yeah,
lot more
fuck, well,
expensive.
yeah.
How much is that
No
in
one's gonna
Japan?
beat that game. No one beats it.
Well, I mean, the ones that show up on the Series X store are like $130 to $150 because they only show you. They only show you the ones that include the season pass and stuff like that. We talked about it a bit last week.
How much is regular?
It was the same as current games.
Oh, so 60?
Yeah, it might have been a bit more in Japanese. 70 maybe.
Get ready for that price bump.
Yeah, I mean, Yakuza also was about the same price. They're the only two games I've bought for the console. Everything else is Game Pass. I haven't purchased anything else. There's not anything else I want to purchase now until Cyberpunk, I guess.
Yeah. Which version did you get? Hero version? HE version? Legendary version? Legendary hero version?
I got the standard version that I
Regular.
found on a website that gives digital keys because I couldn't get it in Japan. So, but the less said about that, the better.
Ooh.
It's a good time. It's a really good time so far.
I don't know, man. You're selling me on it. You're selling me on it.
I think you'd have a great
Let's
time.
see.
It's not. Is it out for PC as well? I don't think it is. I think it's. Oh, it's out on Steam. You can play it on Steam.
Yeah. That's why I'm looking at it.
The different versions are standard, gold, ultimate, and then the Ubisoft Plus version,
Oh, for Valhalla.
which you get for your $15 a month Ubisoft Plus subscription.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned this last week. I tweeted the picture of the gold and ultimate editions, and like that was the only ones you could see, and it would be like, show me all of the different editions, and you'd press it, and only those two versions would come up. It's a bit shitty. I hope this doesn't carry on.
They fixed the not autosave, the instant resume stuff.
They have, and they also fixed it for Like a Dragon as well. I was surprised that they fixed it for Yakuza Like a Dragon as well. It only works about 50% of the time, but I was pleasantly surprised when I came back after visiting Sapporo, and right there, my game was still there. Very quickly going back to the Series X, because obviously we talked about the games. Obviously, having had the Series X for a week now and playing it, it definitely doesn't feel like the next gen yet. There's nothing there yet. Like PS5, I think, is doing what the next gen is, right? But man, playing games on this thing is so easy. It's so seamless. Like, when I turn the console on, it takes me longer to change to the HDMI channel in which the Xbox is on than it does for the console to load itself from being off onto the main menu. So it's there, ready, every time. And when you have games queued up with Quick Resume, not only can you switch between them, but you can turn your console off, like completely. Turn the console off, not come back to the console for 4 days, turn it back on, and then all of those Quick Resume games are still there, still in the states you left them. And that is pretty fucking amazing.
Think of all the time you're gonna save in your life now from the seconds of minutes and seconds that add up to all the loading times and boot up times in your life, and how you can spend those hours, maybe around 10 of them or so, working instead.
Well, the dangerous thing is, and I think I mentioned this last week, is that it just encourages me to not stop playing. Like before, I'm very easily turned off. Like if I have to quit out of a game and then load another game, like I get put off. I'm like, oh, I could just browse Twitter instead, or I can do some work, or I wonder what this YouTube
do work.
I wonder what I can look at YouTube. Like I can take a break after I stop playing a game, or because it takes so long to load. I'm procrastinating booting up the game. I'm terrible about that. But with the Series X, I'm not kidding. Honestly, there's no reason for me to stop playing, because even when I get bored of Yakuza 7, I can stop it right there and there where it is. I don't need to worry about now I don't. I don't need to worry about saving it. I don't need to worry about anything. I just turn it off and I'm like, I want to play Forza for 10 minutes and refresh my palette. I've just finished this really long, lengthy chapter in Yakuza. Now I want to go and play Tetris for 20 minutes before I jump back in, and not having to change discs, or not having to, close the game, save the game, close the game, wait for the OS to boot up, and then load the new game and go through the splash menus and everything. Honestly, means that I don't really leave the Xbox. I can sit there for 5 or 6 hours. The time will fly by because I'm just playing the games. And this is the most I felt engaged about playing games in a long time. And it is surprisingly helpful if you are trying to be more involved in playing games like I am, because I've been terrible in the past couple of years, and it's not very off-putting. I don't have YouTube or anything on the Xbox because my TV has that already. So everything on the Xbox is just games. It's just purely for games, and it just makes me keep wanting to play, because then when I've done playing Tetris, I'm like, well, if I just press this one button and then press this one button to go into Yakuza, it's right there waiting for me. It takes 2 seconds. It's really good. It's really interesting.
Well, now I just don't know if you'd be able to wisely spend your 10 hours of Black Friday work hours that you may or may not have earned from participating in your employee contests.
Continue the adventure with Spider-Man the game. Battle more vicious villains, master more spider skills, and combat evil high above the city streets. Spider-Man the game, rated everyone.
For news this week, I wanted to talk about the canceled GameStop employee TikTok dance competition. And
who thought this would be a good fucking idea? Jesus.
The event team. The GameStop event team. There was a press release that went out on Tuesday, November 3rd, that was kind of in their own exclusive conference portal. What became the big PR fiasco, though, was one of several awards that GameSpot could win by literally roping their team into this competition. That's what the actual press release says. It says, be creative, rope in your team and have fun with it. Don't worry, you can't look as bad as the event team does. And there's at least one video of a GameStop event team dancing to TikTok. And so far as I could find, there were no others. The press release further goes on to say, the winner of the challenge will receive an Echo 8, Echo Auto, $100 Visa gift card, and 10 additional labor hours to use during Black Friday week. Quote, imagine what you could do with all those prizes.
Okay, so this is classic corporate, but I just want to, I want to know though,
yeah,
just so I'm understanding this right.
Yeah.
You get to work more. Right? Am I understanding that correctly?
That if you're the general manager whose team wins, I don't think it specifies if the general or district manager is the one that wins, or if the whole team wins, but they do win.
Isn't it just
hours.
the employee?
So after Thanksgiving, you get to work more.
By working more for free, you earn the privilege to work 10 hours more for money.
Gotcha. All right. Just wanted to clear that up. Yeah. But this is classic corporate, though. This is classic. Anyone who's worked retail knows that they do stupid shit like this all the time, and a lot of this stuff doesn't get press.
Can you even feasibly comprehend? Can you imagine what you could do with all those prizes?
Yeah, nothing.
It's funny because I worked in Game in the UK, which is the GameStop equivalent in the UK, and I had what is the notorious 0-hour contracts, which is you're an employee, but your hours are set weekly on a rota, and you don't know between the week or the next how many hours you're going to get. I remember trying to get as many hours as possible. Like it being a real thing where you'd ask people for extra hours or to ask people if they, want to take a day off and you'll cover a shift for them, or, asking your manager if you could have, because you need money.
Yep.
And it's this kind of like shitty ecosystem that creates this kind of idiotic like corporate nonsense that thinks this is a good idea because they know this is what their employees are asking for. And 10 hours is just like, it's one day, right? As well. It's like, it's nothing.
And think about it. Think about 10 hours at minimum wage. Let's be generous and say
here's your $40
$15 an hour, right? $150. That's it.
Yeah, might as well take the $100 Visa gift card.
$150. Yeah, the $100 Visa gift card. Is it a Visa gift card or a GameStop gift card?
It says Visa gift card.
Visa? Okay.
You use this in store.
Oh no, $100 of credit.
Only works in store.
Oh God. Yeah, I remember getting
Visa
paid.
gift card.
Only legally available in the state of California. Thank God, Texas winner.
I remember getting paid in a charge card that
Yes.
you would have to use at a proprietary ATM
Mhm.
that would charge you fees from your salary to
Fuck
withdraw the money
that.
that you worked 10 hours on Black Friday to earn.
Fuck that.
And people
remember
defend
that too.
capitalism. Like, inherently, capitalism's all right, but it's this kind of thing it leads to. So
And
they canceled it. Or did they just cancel that part? Did they just cancel the 10-hour extra work? Did they carry on the competition?
Presumably, the whole competition is no longer available on the conference website that they first put it up. So maybe the whole thing's gone. And there was only one video.
Do you know what's even sadder about this video that I'm watching now of the
I
GameStop
wanna see
TikTok
it.
challenge?
where is it?
GameStop
Oh,
TikTok.
I see it. Okay.
Yeah.
The worst thing is, one, not only if you had 10 hours between these four people, you could only have basically 2.5 hours each, essentially. It's also the fact that they're not wearing masks.
Yeah, this is the event team. I don't know if
Oof.
they have to like work in the gutters, the shit in the trenches, you know?
You can tell by the smile on their faces.
Right. These people look taken care of.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Ugh.
Oh man.
Do you reckon they were
Comments?
forced to do it? Like one of their higher ups was like, "Yeah, look, just set an example, right? You're not going to win, but, maybe you'll get a bigger bonus at the end of the year.
I guess.
Just
I
set an
guess.
example, and we'll
probably
get
don't
some
know.
people going."
They probably don't know. When you're away from it for so long, you forget. You forget how hard it is.
How different of a mindset was this written under? Like what kind of a person actually thinks people are excited about this stuff?
Oh man, our employees love GameStop. They love games. And they just love working for us.
They love telling parents about the differences of the Wii and the Wii U every Christmas.
Yeah.
You know what? I would rope my team into doing a DK rap.
And like
Yeah.
that would be more game appropriate, right?
Yeah, I'd be a real gamer manager.
Like only true gamers understand this. He's the first member of the GameStop crew. It's George.
He's bigger, stronger,
George.
and faster too.
He's bigger, stronger, still locked inside,
His
depressed as ever with
Don't
his
let
neurotic
him-
mouse.
don't let him contract COVID with his face goo.
Can't let Matt visit because he's been on a plane.
That rhyme
walk up
was
to George
really lame.
Hi, George.
Dude.
George just has like a plastic screen between the two of you.
Stay away.
We did the rap battle mini game in Jackbox 5 for this week's game night. They have the robots text to speech rhymes that you write down. It's real cute. Anyways, yeah, I would have my team do the DK rap. You guys got any ideas what you would do to Earn those 10 hours fair and square.
Wait, am I the owner of my own GameStop? Am I a franchisee?
Imagine that you're the king of games of a GameStop. Yes.
Am I the one
Close
giving
down
them the 10
fucking
hours?
GameStop.
Just give them the extra 10 hours.
If they want to work, they let them work.
Where's the fun in that? We need to have fun. We need to engage our young Zoomineal audience.
I'd have them sing Baka Mitai.
Penetrate into
the
this
Yakuza
demographic,
games.
Liam. You can't just give people 10 hours. You have to make it look fun.
You have to fucking make them install TikTok, create an account, and then just make a stupid dance.
Buy a green screen, put it in their bedroom, dance in front of it.
You have
put
to
a
spend
background on.
$150 on equipment just
Get some studio lights.
Profit.
Think
of
of it as
zero.
an investment. Think of it as an investment on your future here at GameStop.
I mean, come on. We got Beat Saber. I did the DK rap. I felt like that was the easy one, but there's also things like a Space Channel routine, Space Channel 5, or oh god, what other famous video game dances exist?
You could do like Proper Rapper and Guitar
Yeah,
Man.
yeah. There's potential here that they were never gonna fulfill.
The thing is, there's some amazing retail workers out there, always with a smile on their
Right.
face, everything. But no
You
one
guys rule.
wants to work after Thanksgiving. No one. You're fat. You're full of food. Full of that apple pie, quiche, and pumpkin, and turkey and stuffing and collard greens and cornbread. You're stuffed with all that good shit. And then what? You gonna wake up in the morning
I would
and
like
work?
to experience this one day.
Yeah. What?
You've never given thanks.
I've never given thanks. I ain't
You've never
no
had Thanksgiving?
I ain't no dirty American.
You never had Thanksgiving at all?
No.
Not even a
What
fake
are
one?
you people thankful of?
No, it happens in Japan fairly frequently. Like, groups of gaijin will have Thanksgiving, but I've never been able to attend one. Christmas is
the all powerful Liam.
Thank you. The Christmas.
He's just like, thanks.
Christmas is. Hey, thanks. Christmas is our.
Yes, I agree.
Thanksgiving, right? But like, I would like to partake in the meal because it just always looks so good.
Oh, it's always good, man.
that you
I'm
have
having
a
a
holiday.
Friendsgiving potluck, man. I'm gonna bring some Jamaican food.
Oh man, yeah.
I'm gonna bring some
potlucks are
Oh man,
fantastic.
we're gonna have a good time.
We had such a good potluck at the Q Games office last year. It was
Oh
Never-
man,
so
I've
good.
never really
Well,
been a fan
I have
of
a
the,
very
like-
diverse group, man. We're gonna have some good ass food.
Yeah,
Some
the
good-ass
white
food.
people Thanksgiving food, I've never really been that big of a fan of. Like the stuffing,
You guys have no culture, man.
it just kind of tastes bland. There's no spiciness to it, no pepper. It's all salt. Anyways.
Oh my god, I'm fucking messing. Look, I've never been to a white people Thanksgiving. I've never been to a white people Thanksgiving, so I would not know. So
I have also never been to a white person's Thanksgiving just by virtue of never having been to a Thanksgiving.
I guess that I guess that's like going to no Thanksgiving. So I guess
Man.
maybe you dodged the bullet there.
Maybe I'm not missing anything.
The best part of like the college experience for me, at least, was like becoming good, close, real life friends with people of other cultures. And I went to
Absolutely.
an Asian people Thanksgiving once, and it was so fantastic. The food, the home cooking is so different from what you get in restaurants that
Mhm.
I am thankful I had that experience one year of my life.
Yeah, and not to say like you got to get a southern white person, man. You got to get them
Oh no, I've
Them
had
girls
my
can throw
fill of
down.
those.
them girls. can throw down.
I'm satisfied. I'm good.
You good? Yeah, but,
I'm okay with that.
Oh,
I
oh.
actually don't think I'm going to be doing a Thanksgiving this year. But anyways, we can move on to the next
Probably a good
topic.
idea.
We got to switch to super serious gravelly mode. Ubisoft Montreal headquarters has been evacuated due to a hostage call-in on last November, Friday the 13th of fucking course. The headquarters building in Ubisoft Montreal had a scare. There was a reported hostage situation in which a SWAT team from the police was called in. The building was evacuated. People were making scary tweets and taking refuge and barricading in conference rooms.
This was really scary as it was happening until we knew it was a hoax. Like a couple of groups, like Discord groups and stuff I'm a part of, were like keeping it updated, and people were obviously shocked and worried as it was happening. Thankfully, it was a hoax, which it's still sad that this kind of thing would even happen. But the very real idea that in the past, we've had newspapers and, obviously in France with Charlie Hebdo and stuff like that, that something could happen where somebody especially at a place like Ubisoft or EA, I can imagine like some crazy fucker going in and who knows where the office is and going in and doing something like that. Or it's not too beyond reality that when it was, before we knew it was a hoax, people were like very visibly distressed and worried that this was a thing that was happening.
Wait, what exactly happened?
Okay, what exactly happened is that on Friday, November 13th, there were reports coming in from people working at the building onto Twitter. They were hearing from their bosses that they need to lock themselves up for a while and then evacuate a little while later.
Can you imagine?
A police SWAT team showed up and searched the building. But I don't think the threat itself, the original call that the police got, was ever published and reported. There's no name to it, thankfully.
Oh. So there was a call to the police that they called, and then they called the bosses.
A fake hostage crisis that got called in.
Okay.
And as the employees heard the news from the channels, people on the internet were hearing the news as it happened. And yeah, that was the intrusive thought that was going through my head the whole time. Like is what Liam was describing, is like, oh my God, there actually is some gamer who actually is going through with some real stupid, heinous bullshit.
Yep.
And I just hate that that's a fear that I and so many other people have. I can't stand it. I hate it.
It is terrifying that something like that could happen. And watching it, in real time, people, updating and stuff like that. It's like, oh wow, please don't be real, or like, I hope everybody gets out safe, etc., etc. It's like, wow, are we really talking about this? Holy crap.
The whole time I was crossing my fingers and be like, please don't be an angry gamer. Please don't be an angry gamer. If it was real, please at least be like a crazy person who has nothing to do with all the stupid drama we have to deal with in this subculture.
Wow. It's hard for me to understand stuff like this because I could never put myself in those shoes.
It's not the first time it's happened either.
Yeah.
Like in 2014, during Hell Week 2014, there were some bomb threats called in, and one Sony executive had like their plane flight canceled and rerouted because of the bomb threats.
It's rather a popular thing here in Japan.
Doxing and bomb threats.
Calling in bomb threats, predominantly by students to schools and they want to get out of exams.
How do you fix this? Because that's
holy shit.
It's
quite popular here.
It's such an easy way to abuse the system, and you're putting the police in a hard spot. Like, they don't want to look negligent if it turns out that it's a real threat. But at the same time, one of these stories comes up every other year. It is a popular method for harassment. It is. I don't know how easy it is to get away with, but you hear about it happening so much more than you hear about people getting caught for it.
Enough police dramas have told us that, as soon as you call the police, like, they know your phone number, they know where you are, they know where it's coming from, right? You think like anybody who tries to do something like that turns out false, they'd immediately be like, where did that phone call come from? Who was that?
And if it's an anonymous, like a burner phone or some kind of online service, what are you supposed to do? How do you fix that? I really, really hope that I will be an old man by the time society figures out this problem, because it's a fear of mine, and I think everyone else who has to work on the internet.
Yeah. But thankfully, it was not real, and everybody was safe, and everybody evacuated the building. They were all good. Thank God.
Thank God, because I don't want to hear that on the news.
I mean, this stuff was still happening when we were kids, but it's gotten so much worse in the past.
Yeah, it has
5-10 years of internet culture mainstreaming and these pranks going into the public consciousness.
Oh, man, I still think about that YouTube video, man, of some guy going around with his camera years ago, back when we were in high school. Everyone's is out in the spill out. Everyone's talking to each other. No one's on their phones. I miss those days, man. People didn't act so fucking wild and stupid like this. This thing is new, man. Well, new, I say, within the last decade, but
I hate the fact that it's also, it feels newer than it really is.
Yeah,
because it's been like this for 10 years minimum, and at that point, it's not new anymore.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Things are changing, man. Things are changing. Hopefully for the better in the long run. So we'll see.
As somebody mentioned recently, look, the reality is we live in the best time ever of humanity. That's just the fact, right? We don't know how bad it was in the past, but we also don't know how badly right now is going to look in the future if we don't change it. I think that's pretty important. Like, yes, we live in the best time ever for human beings, but we could also be living in a better time in the future if we, especially with the irreversible actions of certain stuff,
I think
get on it.
I think one should
get
keep
good
some
humans.
relativity in mind, like raw statistically speaking, this might be the best time for the total sum of humanity as a whole. But in terms of like the brightness of the future, in terms of how expensive it is to buy a house versus how much you're getting paid for in, the Western industrialized chunk of the world, it's really not. Like, both of those are worse than what our parents and their parents were growing up with.
I think public optimism is lower, but I feel like there was only a period of, I've got to say, 60 to 70 years where that was the reality of human beings. Like, you think back to Victorian times, or by then, nobody owned a house. People were homeless. People were poor. People lived in poverty. It was only like from, we got to say, what? The 30s on to the 80s, the 90s, the max, where that was a thing where it was like you inherited your parents' house, or houses where you were able to buy one and everybody lived in one and it was normality. I don't think it's been that much of a norm.
My grandparents bought like 14 acres in the 40s for something that I'm sure is pennies compared to the millions those things are worth nowadays.
How much I bought a Series X for?
Not that. That's what that generation could do after the war when they got back home to Georgia, is buy extremely cheap land and have generations of the future family like growing up around a lake named after the family. And then afterwards, like every successive generation has not been able to buy 14 acres of land in suburban Georgia like those guys were. Anyways.
Pivoting slightly
to listener questions. If you would like to be a part of this fiasco, send them in to dadandsonspodcast@gmail.com or ask us on our Patreon question channel for a $5
Come join us. It's a wonderful time.
Ka-ching. This first one is a good Liam one in particular, because I've seen you rant about this on Twitter, so maybe you're allowed to rant about it on the podcast.
Oh, no.
It's about an actual real person with a name and feeling. So are we ready? Are we ready for that?
Here we go.
Hello, dads. My name is Paul. I've recently been burning through your catalog of past episodes, and I want to express my immense gratitude to all of you because this podcast helps me get through long, monotonous work days at Amazon. I recently read a tweet by ex-game journalist Colin Moriarty, who is criticizing Jason Schreier for reporting on crunch, specifically at CD Projekt Red. Colin characterized it as a short burst of extra work that benefits the workers in the end, monetarily and professionally, seemingly saying it doesn't count as crunch. And a lot of other people seem to agree that these instances are non-issues. I wanted to hear y'all's insight on this stance. I could see where Colin is coming from, but aren't promises of career advancement and money exactly why companies can exploit game devs? Also, what do you believe constitutes crunch?
So this guy sounds like a Sherlock villain. I'm pretty sure that's the name of the Sherlock villain.
Colin Moriarty does have
Moriarty. Yeah.
does have a shtick that involves pissing people off and making people mad for the enjoyment of him. Yes.
Okay. All right. So this is really important. There's a couple of things to unpack here. Obviously, Colin is whatever you think of him. A lot of people like him, and a lot of people don't for things that he's done over the past couple of years. That is not the point here, I think, from my view. First off, I'm going to say the reason Colin was criticizing Jason was absolutely dumb as fuck because people keep accusing Jason, no matter what you think of Jason, in the same way how people think of Colin. The one thing you cannot deny about Jason is he's doing his fucking job, which he's a reporter. He's not a reviewer of video games. He's not somebody who actively gives impressions about video games. He's a reporter on video game industry problems and the video game industry itself. It is his job to report on work-related issues and exploitation in the video game industry. It's his job to do research about these things. People who come at Jason and say stuff like, you only keep tweeting about this because it furthers your career and makes you more popular, etc. You just shut the fuck up. Shut up. You literally are idiots. Shut the fuck up. It's his job. Right? I'm not defending Jason as the person. I personally like Jason and I like the work he does, but I understand why other people don't. Sometimes Jason pushes the boat out, but I think that's because of years of people just giving him inane nonsense, like we literally just talked about on the internet, because he does his job. And thank God he does his job, because Jason has done so much good work regarding crunch specifically that they changed policies at the place I actively worked at years ago and suffered a crunch at. They changed policies at Rockstar because of Jason's expose about Rockstar for Kotaku. That actively made my friends who work at Rockstar's lives better and more fair because of his reporting, because nobody did it beforehand. So I don't give a shit if you review games, Colin Moriarty, or like that. You cannot criticize somebody whose job it is to report on this nonsense. So that's the first point. I think that is really important to say. Now, the other really important part of this is this is just a short burst of extra work that benefits the workers in the end, monetarily and professionally. That is 100% wrong. It is so wrong.
That turned out to be embarrassingly wrong.
But it's not even if we're just taking the timeline from when this tweet happened, which is, I think, in October to November.
September 29th, exactly 1 month before the delay.
We're not talking about this. And this is not just, I know people who work at the video games industry. Blah, blah, blah. I do actually know people who work at CD Projekt Red, and I know what's happening in CD Projekt Red, but this is not how it works. These guys will have been crunching for a year to a year and a half because they have deadlines in between before a game's release. Imagine a game is broken up into sprints, right? And every time you run a sprint, you're working 100%, you keep on going as fast as possible. You get to the end of that line, but there's another sprint tomorrow. And then there's another sprint after that. And there's another sprint. That's how video game development works in AAA. People have to keep going through these sprints, and these sprints mean that you work 6 days a week, that you work 12 hours a day, that you work 14 hours a day. You do it for 6 months, you get a month break, then straight back out to it because you got another deadline. And video games take 3 to 4 years to make. In the case of Cyberpunk, it's been 8 years? And during that whole time, they will have multiple deadlines. Different alphas, different betas, different multiplayer, different testing inside that needs internal, and they need these deadlines hit so they can keep the production on schedule. And how do you reach those deadlines? You make all of your staff overwork. Now, this will have been going on for years. This isn't 6 extra days in fucking October to get the game finished. They will have been crunching and doing 6 days a week for fucking months. So when they are so close to finishing a game and they are told at the same time as everybody else was told, because apparently that's how CD Projekt likes to do it, which is fine. If that's how they do it, it's not great. But the problem is, it's that the light at the end of the tunnel that these people are seeing. Like, I have 2 friends at CD Projekt Red who actively want to leave after this is finished because of how drained they are of this development, because it keeps getting delayed, and that happens. And it is down to mismanagement. But the point is that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and you don't think about release day. You don't think about your bonus. You don't think about all of these things. What you think about is the there and then moment about what you're missing and how tired you are and how drained you are. Like, it's Saturday and all of your friends are out doing something. I mean, Corona's not helped this year for that kind of thing, but usually imagine you're on a Saturday and you're like stuck in detention, right? Like, it is that kind of feeling. And it drains you. Yes, you can be passionate about your job, but can you be passionate for years and years and do nothing else and dedicate yourself? Yes, you might be desperate to work in the games industry and say, yes, you can do that. But I can guarantee you after a couple of years, you will be as burnt out as everybody else. And these 6 extra days are not just 6 extra days. They are the light at the tunnel getting further and further away. And then the game got delayed to December. So those people who will have been crunching for those 6 extra days will be doing another 6 extra days. And then on top of that, the day one patch, the DLC, the next gen part that comes after it next year. It is a non-stop train. There is a reason huge AAA studios have massive turnovers after projects, because these things never stop, because people don't stop crunching. And that's kind of what we live in. Yes, before it was great. Oh, everybody jokes about, lol, we didn't have day one updates and all this kind of stuff when a game launched. We didn't. And also, when developers made a game, when the game went into the cartridge and they sold it, that was it. The game was done. You move on to the next game and you got to take a sabbatical, you got to take a break, and then start pre-production on something else. That doesn't happen in AAA because money is too important for DLC, for updates, for continued support. Like, I don't know how live games do it. And this is why his tweet and why people who support this, who understand this from that viewpoint, are wrong. And I don't mean that you don't understand. It's just that you have to believe people like Jason, who are doing the reporting on this kind of thing, that this is the reality. Cyberpunk looks fucking great. Yes, and it is because a lot of people worked really hard on it for a long time. But the reality is that those people are not as excited about that game as you, because they are drained and it's their day job. And all of that luster and everything goes away because you just kind of want to be done with it. Same as anybody who works on a project for too long. Try to think about you doing your job and then being told every Saturday you have to come in 12 hours a day, 13 hours a day. Yes, they get to work in video games, but that's not the point. The point, all of that novelty goes away, just like anything that's exciting, when you do it too much. And then it becomes your job and you have to go to your job 6 times a week and you have to do it for 14 hours a day. Crunch is important because it takes away somebody who has a kid who then doesn't see their kid for 6 months, for a year, grow up because they were working 6 days a week. People who get married and then have to just postpone their honeymoons because they have to work a deadline. That is the reality of crunch. The reality is it can never not happen in video games. It can never not happen because things get delayed, things go wrong. But in indie games, you never see it, because there is more flexibility about how we work around projects now. Early access, delaying updates, being honest with the community. AAA is still so much money that it is impossible to do those things, but there needs to be stuff in place that makes sure it doesn't happen on end. People working crunch like 6 months at a time. It's a joke. Crunch is defined by, a month period where you work really hard to get that extra sprint in to get that thing finished. But that is not what happens. So when somebody goes around, who, by the way, Colin Moriarty might know a lot about games, but he doesn't know anything about video game development. I know he worked with a external studio to make a game that's in his name. He didn't work on that game. Like, he doesn't know about video game development. Whatever he thinks, he's never been in the trenches getting a game finished. So shut up. Like, if you, it's like armchair sports people, right? Like, we all joke about things that we're fans of, that we can give advice about, but we actually don't know what we're talking about. But it's part of the novelty, isn't it? It's like armchair sports people who comment on football or golf or whatever. Like, I can't believe he missed that shot. What the fuck is he thinking? But they're not the professional sports stars, right? And like, if you actually tried to tell Tiger Woods how to play golf, you'd look like a jackass. It is almost the same thing. Just if you don't know what you're talking about, don't comment. like inane nonsense. It's so funny because I double checked Colin's Twitter feed after Cyberpunk got delayed. Not a single tweet about it. Nothing. He didn't update. He didn't say anything. He didn't update it because he knows he should have shut the fuck up in the first place, because this is not the right thing to do. And it's like this kind of misinformation, similar to the problems we have in the world now, where people have an opinion on something that they don't know about, that turns into misinformation, that turns into people believing him, and then people attack the people who work on these games who are complaining about crunch. People who complain at me about the GTA tweets I've made in the past. Like, just everybody, just hold your horses. Listen to people who might know more. Like this whole like truth issue we have now in reality. Same expands with video game development, and maybe people who like Jason, who people don't agree with sometimes, and that is totally fine, and you don't have to like him, but his job is to report on video game news. And when he does an expose about crunch and stuff like that, just read it. And maybe digest the fact that the anonymous comments from people inside of studios who've commented to him are real, but those people are afraid of losing their jobs. Please, it is such an issue in video games right now, and it's the reason why we don't see that many older people in video games, or you see a lot of older people who then convert to indie, because unless you're a director in AAA, like it's an unsustainable lifestyle. You're either a bachelor, you don't have a family, and that's it. You just dedicate yourself to it.
Gotta worry about them kids.
It needs to change. It really does. Like at Q, we really try hard to make sure we have rules in place, so people have to ask for permission to stay late. When we make sure we keep a cap on the amount of hours per month. We do a lot of things that are against the traditional Japanese norms, because it's really important. And I've discussed this internally with my teams multiple times. We had people staying past 8 p.m. and that was not on. Like on Scrappers, we were sending them home, making sure that it wasn't a repeat thing, because people work better when they're not fucking tired, and when they feel inspired to come to work and do something because they know they can go home and accomplish other things, whether it's furthering other skills or spending time with their family or just recreational time, watching Netflix, playing Yakuza 7, like whatever. If people have that time, they are much better, much more productive, and it's really important. God damn it. I'm sorry for the rant, but I knew this was happening, but it needed to be said, and this is the reality, whether you believe me or not.
Preach, brother.
Like, just,
Preach.
I'm sorry. Like, I don't really have any thoughts about Colin beyond that tweet, because I didn't watch IGN when he was there. I don't know about when he was at Kind of Funny. I don't know what he does now, but his tweets and his attacking of Jason just looks petty, amateur, and singles him out as somebody who just doesn't understand. And that's the worst thing you can do when you're a professional, is make yourself look stupid. And that's what those tweets did.
One thing that kills me about the spread of media like this is that not enough people are going to be paying attention to the bylines and the dates and a lot of just screenshots of stupid headlines that you see. And when you see this already stupid tweet and then see that the date attached to it is September 29th, that adds another dimension of hilarity. Like, he's claiming the team is being asked to pay to stay and get paid for 7 extra days. And here we are in mid-November, and the game is still not out. Considering the date alone, like, that's enough to poke so many holes into this theory that he's putting out.
Really important point here as well that I neglected to point out, just on that 6 days monetary thing. Yes, the bonus thing might happen, but the reality is a lot of these, especially senior people in studios, are salaried positions, which means they don't get paid overtime.
That's how they get you.
So you get paid a good salary, but you could actually, especially if crunch keeps going on and you're working overtime, you could be basically out of pocket because you chose the salary. Oh, they gave you a salaried position. So you're working overtime for free. And that happens in a lot of studios. It used to happen at Rockstar. I think it's changed now there, where you get paid overtime on top of your salary, but that sometimes disqualifies you from overtime pay.
Back when I was younger, working in restaurants, that's even how it worked in America, like in the bottom lower rungs of the service industry. Once you get promoted to manager and get a salary, you're staying there longer than 40 hours a week.
Yeah. But I'm sorry we did it again, but it's really important that these things do get talked about. And yes, obviously, having experienced it, it's something I'm quite passionate to talk about. But I'm sorry, Paul. You could see where Colin's coming from. Trust me, I hope after this you can't, because it's a joke. He's wrong. He doesn't understand. He doesn't know internally what's going on with certain teams. Like it's a joke. You cannot just offhanded say, it's only 6 extra days. What the fuck are they complaining about?
People like to talk about things they don't understand a lot.
They don't.
And
They just
I'm
don't.
saying, I try. I'm pretty sure I've done it before, and I try not
Everybody
to
has.
do it. I
no,
try
we're
not
all
to do it.
guilty.
Yeah,
We're super
all
guilty.
here. But like when you're on the internet, like yelling angrily, and I don't know, man, you might need to.
I just
Be
don't think we've
careful.
gotten angrily defensive about it. We've said a lot of stupid shit.
Yeah, no, we've always been like, oh, okay, we were wrong. Okay, like
Colin has like
Yeah.
160,000 Twitter followers.
How
yeah,
did
And
that
it's not
happen?
good.
And he's like, a prominent voice in video games. Like if it's this type of person who is spreading this kind of misinformation about stuff, like
And that's another can of worms.
That's a
Yeah.
massive audience of people who are just going to believe him because they like who he is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just look at the date. Just look at the date on the tweet, and it's so wrong how like the timeline and the date they don't match, and that's not how it turned out. And it's like it's aged like milk. It's anyways.
Like milk.
The
Oculus is discontinuing the Rift S. Oh no. I'm sorry. I just looked that up and it's
Nice
pissing me
pivot.
off.
news was 20 minutes and a whole Liam rant ago.
That's how we measure units. here.
Also, I'm actually kind of real sad about that discontinuation of the Rift S,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
I have one over there.
That means I have to get a Oculus Quest 2 or wait for something else to come out that's as good as that.
Yeah,
Just
that's
putting
been a
on the
whole
headset
pivot,
without
didn't it?
tracking or anything and just fucking going.
the WMR lineup, I think, might be the best bet at this point.
The what? Which one?
The Windows mixed reality stuff.
No. Is it inside out tracking on
No.
those things?
I think
No.
they have one now that came out recently that has inside out tracking.
The HP one?
Yeah, maybe that does seem to kind of ring a bell.
The new one that came out that's supposed to be. See, the thing is
all I know is
that
it's new.
the actual controllers don't track as well as it. See, that's the thing, is that the Oculus still tracks better. But anyways,
Anyway,
instead of the Rift S onto
the Sheriff C.
never
hey-
mind.
hey,
Sorry.
dads.
I thought we were on
Sh-
Elliot S.
We're on Sheriff Crawdaddy.
For all that.
Sheriff Crawdaddy here. I'm
Crawdaddy.
currently finishing off my practicum in a secondary high school as a music teacher, and the students bloody love Among Us on mobile. For the sake of conversation, do you think Among Us could be used in a school curriculum, maybe in a social science unit?
Yeah, why not? I think it's a very good explanation into the psyche of lying and betrayal and misinformation. Why not? I think it's very surface level, but
You could
I
spin
think
it. Yeah, you could spin,
could spin
it. But people are just gonna play to play. I feel it's not like Minecraft. Minecraft, you can like
could-
totally see
you could
educational
do trust exercises maybe with it.
trust exercises.
For like
Therapy.
team building courses, like
Yeah.
extracurricular ones where the kids with more time and
You know,
more parents with more time.
I don't know if you have this TV show in America, but we had a TV show called Golden Balls in the UK.
Nope.
It was like a quiz
Never
show.
heard of that.
Yum.
Where you have you end up with two people, and there are two balls at the end, and each ball has a value.
You're screwing with us, right? No, you're not. It's
Google it.
here.
No,
Oh god.
I can't remember the exact rules, but you have two people, and there are two bowls in the middle, with each has a monetary value. One obviously is very, very low, and one can be very, very high. And the idea is that between the two people, they have to choose to either split to be able to take the amount of money together and split it, like the large one, or somebody can try and steal it. Right? It's what is it called, the prisoner's dilemma or something like that.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
And
like
it's
ratting
basically
on your
that as a game
friends.
show. Yeah, and
Yeah.
then the other can choose to steal it, right? And they kind of reveal a ball towards each other, like whereas it's like split or steal, and the one who steals, and if the other guy splits, but if they both steal, then they both lose the money, right? Among Us is kind of like that sometimes.
Man, these guys look so uncomfortable beside each other. Like they're looking at each other. They're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Like,
steal
are
it.
you
Are you
gonna-
gonna steal it? Oh, are you gonna split it?" Like,
Yeah.
dude, holy
Split
shit!
or steal.
I would definitely split, but the thing is, he's winking at him. Yeah,
You have
Go
to
ahead.
realize who you were against, though. Like, that's the thing, isn't it? It's like the
Yeah.
Among Us, right? It's like, who are you against? And
I'm
do
against-
you trust them?
I'm against the YouTube algorithm after typing
I
in
know
golden
George
balls.
would steal. I know he would steal.
Is that the
Hmm.
optimal strategy? I'll just do the optimal strategy.
which is stealing. George would absolutely steal. I second that.
George would steal. I think George would steal. Honestly.
Maybe
George
I would use
definitely
my
steal from me.
my
'cause I
poker
would
face
split.
George
to
would
make
do
you
that
guys
thing-
think I would steal.
No, George would do that thing where he'd be really remorseful, but he would still do it.
Yeah. Thanks. He takes the whole file.
I'm so sorry.
I'm guessing then you would have this in some kind of advanced social studies class about the desperation of poverty and the privilege of white collar crime. and how poor people
Oh, we
commit
get deep now.
crimes because they need to, and rich people commit crimes because they think they can get away with it and get a thrill out of it, and also maybe because they want to lower their taxes and hoard their money.
We always go
You-
back to the taxes.
I mean, what is Among Us if not a game about
Oh, God.
shedding off
God.
unnecessary burdens from the systems of your community?
Well, you're talking about killing people?
As a metaphor for taxes, if I was Colin Moriarty, that metaphor would make a lot of sense.
Let the weak get fired,
Yeah, let the weak
and the people who could handle crunch survive.
pay their own taxes.
Don't worry, just make a TikTok video and you'll get more crunch hours.
And
More crunch hours. Oh, that
can't
sounds
believe-
so crunchy.
is Colin Moriarty still using the @no tax? Yes, he is.
At no
Okay,
tax.
anyways, no taxation is his Twitter handle. But I always thought that was. I hate that I have a Twitter feed full of like Angry Joe fans who are mad about Angry Joe talking about politics when he's a video game channel. When there's people like Colin Moriarty who exist who are like actively trying to transition from one to another with a handle like that.
I read the comments for our YouTube video last week, and I was talking for literally 10 minutes about one of the biggest presidential elections of all time, and people were like, let me skip the politics. And it's like,
No, it was just 10 minutes.
what show have you been listening to for like 3 years?
Yeah.
It's just
If you're skipping the politics, you must have voted for the wrong guy. Because that's the only thing we talk about.
it's just 10 minutes. It's fine.
I know.
No,
Is it?
no.
We
Interesting.
We can
Just
cash that
interesting.
in.
It's very interesting. Woof, man, if you can separate voting from Trump and listening to us, man, power to you, man. That's some
Fair play
serious
ignorance
love
right
right
there.
there. And I appreciate that love. I appreciate it. I don't understand you, but I appreciate it.
You think we got time for one more?
But wait, let me do the segue again. Instead of the Rift S,
Oh, I guess now might be a good time to talk about the Elliot S.
Excellent.
Eh,
This is why we're professionals.
Wait,
Yeah.
Matt, hold up. I'm rewinding a bit. Did you bring up the Oculus S just because it sounds kind of like Elliot S's name here?
that might have been subconscious. Yeah, maybe.
Oh, you should have taken the credit. You should have 100% taken the credit.
Elliot S. Says, I have a question about games' control schemes and how these help or hinder your experience. I've been playing a lot of MGS3 recently, which, as you know, has a really weird control scheme. I wouldn't change it for the world, however. To me, it's how Metal Gear is supposed to feel. I felt that the games in the series after 3 lost a bit of their identity when adopting regular third-person control layouts. Anyways, I kind of miss games having unconventional or odd control schemes, since I think it adds personality and is something I usually remember years after having played them. Oh. Yeah. But on the other hand, having established control schemes means that you don't have to waste time explaining them to experienced gamers. What do you think, dads? In what way do control schemes add to the experience versus act as a hurdle between the player and immersion?
It's like having the jump button on like B or some shit like that.
Oh, that messes me up
That
so
fucks
much.
me up a lot. It's just like,
Yeah.
no, guys, come on. And I sometimes go in that menu and switch it.
One thing they mentioned in the letter that I didn't even really consider is how it adds something I usually remember years after having playing them, and that's something I don't think I even noticed until just now thinking about it. Is like I remember the feeling my hand has in Metal Gear Solid 3 when like I also remember like the feel of the claw grip I give the controller to Dark Souls. Like those memories are associated with those games in a way that I do not remember what my hands were doing when I was playing MGS4. 5, on the other hand, had great ass controls. I remember loving how much I was tickling the analog stick and then seeing how many gradations of movement your character has for that, which Death Stranding did really cool too as well. But yeah, no, I mean, I think I've said my piece about how much I love weird control schemes. I love weird genres, weird control schemes, weird menus, a weird way to interface with the game. I am a fan of that. I'm really digging Not for Broadcast right now, which is a cute little indie game where you like real-time video edit as your primary game mechanism, and nothing else controls like this game. Nothing looks like this game, and I get jazzed about that to the bee's knees.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I feel like that's fine. I feel like if you have a game that needs an alternate control scheme because it's got an interesting game mechanic, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
However, I don't think games
you want the jump button on
that
on
had
that,
tank control. No. The games that had tank controls and stuff like that necessarily are good. Like,
hell no.
It was a case of limitation in the past. And yes, it might have nostalgic personality, but if you go back to play those games, I almost guarantee you'll put it down after 10 minutes because
no, man,
George won't. George just already said. He said he liked the controls of Metal Gear Solid 5 because, I mean, it's a well-polished AAA game that has standardized controls. I mean, what do you want me to say?
Resident Evil Remake and the Silent Hill trilogy all had kind of sort of camera relative controls where you would move the stick and your character would move in that direction, not so much tank controls. And those things review well, they age well.
Yeah, but Resident Evil 2 aged really well, and the remake reviewed really well and was received really well, and it changed to a Resident Evil 5 third-person action combat style. I mean, a big thing about this, and I think everybody should watch Rasputin's video of playing games as a non-gamer, where he asks his wife to play a game. I think that's a really good referential video for this kind of thing. Games have a universal language, which is controller. Like you play Gears of War, you play Gears Tactics, you play Forza Horizon, you play Ikenfell, you play Yakuza, you all do it through the same controller, right? Big barrier to entry for a lot of games is when you start fucking with that language that you understand, like jump is A and then jump is B. And while I think games that have quirky, unique mechanics that you learn the controls to be better at that mechanic, I think games that have, like Metal Gear maybe, or even with the Demon's Souls remake, they've changed it so it's omnidirectional rolling instead of the 4-directional rolling of the original. That kind of stuff is getting over limitations of the past and being more in line with what is the universal language of playing games. And I think that's important for everybody to be able to access games. But if you have something that needs unique controls because that's what the gameplay requires, I think that's totally fine. And stuff like WarioWare or Rhythm Heaven or something like that, that's so fun because it does quirky, unique things with the controls. It's great. But if you have an action game that just has fucked up controls for no other reason than it just has them, I don't think that's necessarily a good thing.
The question is whether or not it has the reason. And as you brought up, like back in the day, tank control horror games were a result of the limitations.
Yeah, exactly.
What's the saying? Like limitation breeds creativity. Like it was a smart way of dealing with it.
It's like Elliot said, he wouldn't change it.
Yeah, and I
remember playing like MGS3 on the Nintendo 3DS, like that remake that had like original tank controls and was limited by the fact that the game only had one stick, versus playing the Vita HD remake. And there is one I would way prefer to play over the other, even with still the quirky
Yeah,
MGS3
it's
stuff on top.
totally a case by case thing. But what I've always feared is that lack of creativity going away with the lack of technological limitations.
But that's the game, right? That's not the control. Like, I think this is the sort of maybe the barrier that we're talking about here. Like, you don't need to be creative with controls in a new Resident Evil game. Whereas if you have something, or a new Metal Gear game, but if you have something that is like the game you were just describing, right, that has unique gameplay actions that require for that kind of thing, like let's say Astrobot that just came out, that uses the controller in all different ways, and the control schemes are changing all the time, that requires that changes, and then you'll remember that because the controller is a part of the experience. Once you start with a game that has the resemblance that it uses the universal language of games in it, like an action game like Resident Evil or like Metal Gear, and you change that just because you can, I don't think that's necessarily a good thing at all. It creates a barrier already, and people have to relearn stuff. It's like this whole, PlayStation 5 being X is accept, zero and circle is back, whereas in Japan that's really fucked with a lot of players, because in Japan it's been, for the 20 years of PlayStation, the reverse way around.
On a case by case, situation by situation basis, you can see all sorts of exceptions arise. And one of the things that I think is the coolest is something Hunt Showdown does, where you have to hold an extra button to aim your gun. Your character's default stance has their gun like waved across their shoulder. You hold down right click, then your character aims it at the hit. Then you hold down shift, and your character actually puts it up to their face and aims down the sight. And it's complicated, and 2 extra steps required to point a gun and shoot at someone than usual, but it's for an important reason. And it's because your gun won't clip out of the cover you're hiding in your hiding spot, because it's supposed to be kind of a stealth game. So your default stance has your character taking a narrower silhouette. There isn't a long metal tube that's going to be sticking out of the bush you're hiding in, or through the walls you're aiming through. And it takes an extra button to aim at someone because they want you to take that extra time for the shot. Like, it's a game all about preparing.
Yeah. So everything leans towards reacting. The gameplay, right?
Yeah. It's a situational case by case thing, but the controls are weird and hard to learn and have gotten me killed a lot. The flip side of that is you see other players panic with the controls. If you surprise them off guard, you'll see other players like run around in a circle and overcook their grenade and blow themselves up just because of how much work that game wants out of you, just when it comes to pointing and hiding in a spot.
Well, yeah, you've already just described what is a part of the problem, right? Is that those players, their barrier for even just playing the game difficulty is the fact that they're fighting with the controls, but that's a part of that experience, and it helps you when you learn it, so it's not such a bad thing. But you can already see the ups and downs of messing with controls that are different from the norm. It's
horror adjacent, and I think a big part of the experience of gamifying the cinematic horror moments is when the character is struggling to escape from a monster because they're tripping over themselves, they're fumbling with their car keys, there's stuff in the way of the room that they're slapping out of the way as the serial killer is chasing after them. And games are such a power trip that it's so tempting for them not to want to gamify those moments of panic, like when you don't feel in control, and that's part of the entertainment, that's part of the story they're telling. I think the control scheme should be able to add some emotions and hardships for the sake of the experience and the story.
I'm hoping so. I'm hoping with all the stuff we hear about the DualSense now that people are going to do more interesting things.
Yeah, like what if like the Metal Gear Solid 6? Oh no, you have to shoot the character you loved for the whole game, but the trigger's extra hard. You have to squeeze it really hard.
Yeah, fuck yeah. I'm all in. I'm all in for stuff like that. Let's do it. Like somebody was saying that the new NBA games, the more tired a player gets, the harder it is to pull down on the trigger to sprint.
Oh, that's cute. That's real cute.
See, that kind of stuff. That is where we should be going. That is unique. It's purposeful.
That's what I love about VR games so much, is that you'll panic. You'll screw things up and it'll feel natural. And that's what I love about weird control schemes, is when you can panic and screw things up, but it'll still feel natural, I guess, is the line I like.
Exactly. That's the kind of dumb shit we need to be going for.
Like, I don't want to just sit down and have the game play itself, you know?
The game's playing itself.
That doesn't happen as much as it used to. Like those Glut of 2009 military shooters really were much more passive experiences than what I think we got before and after.
Liam, are you the only one that still doesn't have a VR headset?
I've had one for months now to when I played Alex, but it's not mine. It's a friend's that
Oh, okay.
he has like
And you haven't
he has
touched
done.
it? Yeah, okay.
I haven't touched it yet.
You should play Squadrons. It's so good.
I have it queued up. I have it queued up to do so at some point. When I set it up again, that'll be the first thing I play.
Well, speaking of fun,
Just like this podcast was.
Like this podcast.
Just like this podcast.
fun, enjoyable, entertaining, adequate podcast. This very okay podcast.
Give it 5 stars. Just do it, please. I'm begging.
where do you give it 5
on
stars?
iTunes.
On
Just
iTunes.
do it on iTunes. That's where the SEO money is. Just do it there, please.
We have a Patreon that will give you access to a fun Discord.
Yeah, so good.
We are also partnered with Nebula. If you're into documentaries, the Curiosity Stream bundle is something you'll hear all about, dynamically added into episodes of this podcast.
Look at us, the professionals.
The professionals.
Right? Like once we say this stuff, we don't know what else.
Just kind of dip out. Or like, what do we do? We've never had this kind of responsibility.